What the fuck?
Everything you see in the shot up to 8 feet high is real and had to be hauled into this desert location.
All this foliage here is fake.
That sequence is like 50% of our production problems.
This is Freddie Wong and Matt Arnold. They're longtime collaborators from the early days of YouTube. And this is their first feature film, We're All Gonna Die, which premiered at this year's South by Southwest Film Festival.
We grew up in the era of DVDs and, maybe we can get into Sundance.
Yeah, that was the dream in college, was get into a film festival, and that's it.
Freddie and Matt started out on YouTube making visual effects videos for the Rocket Jump channel and their web series, Video Game High School. They pulled from those years of experience to help them make this post-apocalyptic rom-com road trip film on a budget.
Highway, oh shit!
We had to know exactly what shots we were going to have, and we had to make it as easy as possible for our production team to make anything.
There's also being very, very specific with the sci-fi elements, right? It's like, tentacles. It's like, no. Tentacles add too much money right away.
Too much animation.
3D animation, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Like, no, too much, too expensive. If it's 30 feet or further, that's actually way easier to do. And if it's against the sky, even better, because you don't have to do green screens and stuff.
The film cost $450,000 to make, which according to them, most Hollywood producers aren't even interested in talking about. So they had to come up with the most badass way I have ever heard of to finance a film, using the money that they earned from their podcast, Dungeons and Daddies.
This is what they don't teach you in film school. We just had to come up with like a top 50 Spotify podcasts about Dungeons and Dragons.
In this episode, I'm digging into how Freddie and Matt accomplished world building on a budget and why they opted out of the traditional Hollywood approach to get the movie made.
If we can find a way to sustainably make $500,000 to $1 million movies every 2 years, then I can die happy.
New ending, you blow yourself up. I love it. We can't afford that. Too bad, because we're doing it anyway.
Guys, we're talking about your guys' fucking movie.
Yeah.
You guys made a movie.
We made a movie.
Against all odds.
And finally.
feature.
And it just premiered at South by Southwest.
Correct,
yes.
How did that go?
Really fun, really
Very
crazy.
cool.
And embarrassingly, we had this idea of let's make this movie and let's just get it out and put it out in front of people. So we weren't even thinking hard about festival stuff. We weren't because in our heads we were we'll submit to some of them, but who knows, right? It's gonna be a crapshoot. And that we don't want that to be the thing, because I've met people who are they got their movie into a festival and then they spend the next 5 years doing other festivals and promoting it, and I'm I want to just keep making movies though, So we were ready to go, and then we were just a total surprise for us that we got into South by Southwest. We weren't even thinking about it.
Congrats. It's huge.
you.
It's also just kind of cool. One of the things I want to talk about today is you haven't been active on YouTube in what, 8 years or something? 10
forever.
years?
Yeah.
A long time.
Yeah, might as well be a dinosaur at this point, yeah.
If you talk to YouTubers today,
Yeah.
they want to be filmmakers. They want to show film at South by
Yeah.
Southwest. And you guys freaking did it.
Yeah.
You made that, I don't even want to call it a transition, because at this point it doesn't even feel like a transition.
I remember seeing this moment talking to film kids when it was all of a sudden everyone just had cameras. Everyone wanted to be online. They wanted to be, I'm going to make a thing. I'm going to put it online. That was just an assumption. Whereas for us growing up, that was not at all. For us, we were we grew up in the era of DVDs and this flourishing of independent cinema. And maybe we can get into Sundance. Darren Aronofsky and Pi and
that was the
Quentin
dream
Tarantino.
in college, was get into a film festival, and that's it.
Right.
They see it, you make
And
your
then
next
they-
movie.
yeah, exactly.
And then you start having dinner with, Scorsese, random nights to hear about. There's that's what everybody thought at USC Film
Yeah,
School.
and then you got out, and then you're this whole thing blew up. It's not even happening anymore so much.
And even the process is really different. I remember when I went to your guys' screening at South by, I walked in, you guys had a laptop open, you were editing, I think, in Premiere.
Yeah.
You were editing the movie as I was walking in. I don't know if it was for that screening that I was about to see.
Oh, it was for later.
For the next screening, yeah. We had 4 screenings at South by. We had the premiere, then you screen it throughout the week. And every screening, we listened to the crowd, and we just would make tweaks. The moment we're done with the movie, me and Freddie would just walk out of the theater, and we'd be
that part didn't work.
We should slow that part down.
Yeah.
We could just, we have talked about cutting that joke. Let's just cut it. It never gets a laugh. Just cut it.
We use South by Southwest a little bit as our test screenings to be what are the jokes that are working and everything.
Because we had no expectation of anything coming out of South by.
Yeah, to be clear, we walked to South by and we looked at the other movies and we're we're not going to win shit. It was so clear to us that our movie was the fun right? They had all these really great sound. I was wow, this sounds like a really good movie. All fantastic premises and stuff. And then ours was like, fun genre, road trip, sci-fi, rom-com. Like, we're not winning it.
There's also not really anything to win. And like, I want to be clear, like, everybody at South by was great. For us, we're like, well, this is a great opportunity just to get it out in front of people, like, see the responses. We can tweak it.
Meet other filmmakers.
Meet other
all the
filmmakers.
fun,
Like, it's always
stuff.
like all the extra stuff is like what was worthwhile. And it turned out really worthwhile.
Okay, shall we watch some clips? Here we go.
Whatever you like.
I was visiting you up here, and afterwards I was like, I need this opening shot of this movie. We were kind of theorizing what the opening shot of it should be because we were kind of rewriting and tweaking it. And we're like, what if it shows up, but it shows up over like some sort of populated area, but we didn't want to do like obvious LA, New York, like the obvious cities. But I was like, this is a park that has this nice overview of Oakland. And so this is Oakland. This is Lake Merritt right there in the So this is just like I just got a ride up to the park.
Yeah. And is that the whole plane is fake?
All of it's fake.
Yeah.
The cloud's real, plane explosion, and then obviously the 3D sort of spike element. The setting was very much inspired by our time in the pandemic, which was like, okay, at some point in the near future, an alien spike materializes.
Images are coming in now of an unknown object.
We fear the thousands trapped inside may already be dead.
Traffic out of the evacuation zone is at a complete standstill.
So what do you think it is?
Aliens.
Definitely aliens.
We throw missiles at it. We try to blow it up. Nothing we do works, and the movie actually takes place many years later where it's just there. It's just this alien object that's just hanging over us.
I remember as a viewer being like, what? like the movie isn't about the spike showing up. The movie is about like once it's there, and we all had to deal with it.
The intro was an added thing. It was very much like, oh, this is like, let the audience know, like it's kind of like a troll, but it's like it's not that sort of movie. It's not. We always said as we were writing this, is like there's two types of apocalypse movies. The asteroid that Bruce Willis is going to save while singing to his daughter or whatever, like, and he saves the day.
He doesn't sing. Aerosmith
sings.
Bruce Willis.
He's humming along. And we save the American willpower. Stops the apocalypse, or it's what we call like apocalypse. Like I call it apocalypse porn, which is like it's just an action movie set in like a zombie land, and it's like it's horrible that all you can do is like use big guns to shoot bad guys, and you just got to deal with like life and not deal with all the all the stuff that we're all stressed out about. Us modern millennials all stressed about.
There's
like,
a little
bills.
bit of this wish fulfillment. I'm like, wouldn't it be cool if we could take over this mall?
But
you know what I mean?
But as the world, as history has shown us, it's like apocalypses happen all the time. The Black Plague, like the flu, COVID, like really quickly, people adapt really quickly. So we wanted to make an apocalypse movie in America where the apocalypse happens and
we're forced to adapt to it.
You still gotta just live your life.
Did you guys, when you were filming this shot in particular, did you know this was going to be the opening shot? And at this point,
we did.
That was designed to be the opening shot. We went back and forth a lot. I feel like the traditional way of shooting this shot is to show the city, and then like the thing appears, and you pan up to see how big it is. And we'd rather have started the other way, which was kind of going to lead into how the rest of the film is, which is like this peaceful scene. You kind of don't know where you are. You're looking at sky. This big thing appears, and then we come down to the Earth level because like that's what's important, and then like that's the scale. So it's like we bring us back down to Earth, and like that's what the movie's gonna be about. We don't really care about this thing. We care about like how it affects people below.
We use the cameras that you're shooting on right here.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So we use
Canons.
the Canon, which was hilarious because there's such a reputation in the film world for Canons being documentary cameras. Like I always remember talking to DPs, and they shit on the Canon EF lenses. It's so weird to me because they're like, oh, you can't make a good cinematic image with these still photography lenses. And I remember when we were like, well, but like the specs of this are on par with cinema cameras. They're doing the dynamic range, et cetera, et cetera. And we're like, why not? Why can't we use this? And also it's cheaper. The battery life is better. There's all these like benefits that we saw anticipating a shoot in the middle of who knows where with probably limited power, with limited, sort of technological access. So we needed kind of some of the benefits of what a documentary camera would provide. Bangani was the only director of photography who we presented this, like, hey, we want to shoot with this documentary camera. And he goes like, oh, interesting. And then his follow-up was like, if these are what you're trying to maximize for, look at these other ones as well. These other cameras within this range. I was like, this person's thinking about it. Not
He wasn't just like, I need to use the Alexa because that's what every DP wants to use.
Yeah.
I feel like we're at a place in history when consumer gear has passed a threshold where gear just doesn't matter like it used to matter.
100%.
Like there was a period of like 50 or 60 years in filmmaking, audio production, microphones, where it was like, you need the nice thing, otherwise it's going to sound like trash.
Yeah.
But then like the consumer gear caught up and it passed the, whatever you want to call it. There was like a threshold, there's like a moment
There's a
in
minimum
time.
level of quality threshold that the average person like is looking for.
Yes.
And it's like, if my dad can't tell the difference between the different cameras, it doesn't matter.
And so we're at a point now where it's like you could, for like $1,000, you know, you can get a thing that rivals the $500,000 equipment.
Yeah.
And that's such a special time in
you would
history.
expect that moment to be paired with, great, now it's about what are you saying? Now it's about what you're going into it. But instead,
it's the snootiness.
It's saying it's snootiness. Now you got YouTube channels that are like, oh, now let me tell you why the other stuff is, the expensive stuff is worth it. Because I was like, you guys are missing the point. There's
also a really nice thing that you guys did where we get to see this shot, but we don't see the detail of the spike, right? It's just... Right, there's really low contrast because it's so far away. So we know there's something there, but we don't know what. It's a little bit like not showing the shark the whole time, right? It's like it did feel a little bit like that to me, which was like, what is that thing made of?
That is a big question because like even from this scale, like the thing should be even more, because we had first versions of VFX shots where like you could almost not even see it because it's like the moon you can barely see.
Right.
We're like, we need to see it a little bit because we want it to hang over.
This was a consideration when we were thinking about what the way things looked when we were talking about early Spike stuff. Oh, tentacles. It's like, no. Tentacles add too much money right away.
Too much animation.
3D animation, all that stuff. Like, no, too much. So even early on, I remember the guideline that I was telling Matt was like, listen, if it's an object that's an alien object that's not close to them, if it's 30 feet or further, that's actually way easier to do. And if it's against the sky, even better, because you don't have to do green screens and stuff. The sky is like your own little blue screen so that you can actually put stuff in front of it. So then we're like, okay, the sci-fi-ness of it is actually cheap in the grand scheme of things because it's far away. It is a still object. It is against the sky. So like, great, fantastic. There's shots where we don't have to see it all the time. We can just conceivably pick and choose which shots it shows up in.
And the airplane just came from because I hate flying. So when I had to think of something scary, the first thought I thought of was an airplane would crash.
Yeah.
And it also became more a running joke in the movie where it's like, oh yeah, air travel. Because it solved the problem for us even plot-wise. The story is this spike jumps and our main characters lose the things that that are important to them. And so the first question was like, well, why don't they just get on a plane and go to where they think it is? They're like, right, you know what? The spike made it so the airplanes don't work. Like, nice. Oh, and cell phones. Yeah, now we solved all the problems of movies.
Okay, so does that come in the scripting? Where in the scripting stage is that coming? Where are you guys thinking about?
Pre-scripting.
It's pre-scripting.
Or like as we're outlining, figuring out the story pretty quickly, because that was one of the first. You kind of have the story, and then as you start writing a story, you go back and forth between character and theme, but then you get into practical problems, and that was one of the first practical problems as we were trying to like solve the plotting of the movie, which is just like, oh, why doesn't she just like call up like the pizza shop or whatnot, or why don't they just like fly somewhere even if though her truck's there? Like, couldn't they like afford a plane ticket or all these things? You start figuring all these things out. It's just like the mood you want them to be on the road. So we're like, oh yeah, should be no cell phone. And also we just like the idea of everybody kind of being isolated and alone in this apocalypse.
Walk me through pre-scripting. Like when do you start writing something down? When are you like, oh, this idea in my head should be a movie? And I'm gonna start fleshing that out into something.
Our process was funny for this one because every project kind of goes a different way. Our process was different with this one because Matt was coming over every day, and this was in the height of the pandemic. He was in my like safe pod, and there was this like parking lot like sitting area thing kind of where I was living that we would just sit around outside and just chat, and we would just talk about stuff. And we were talking about, well, we want to do a movie now, and what would that look like? What would a low budget movie look like? The general knowledge is that like, oh yeah, if you want to do a cheap movie, one location movie. So there was Frozen. There was the one where they're all stuck on the ski lift, really cheap because it's just a ski lift. There was Reservoir Dogs, right? The ultimate example of like the prototypical is just a warehouse, and it's after the heist. You don't even see the heist, I love this movie Buried with Ryan Reynolds. There's like a fight. He fights a snake inside this coffin he's buried in. And like, I remember at that point being like, I don't know about that. And the difficulty with one location movies is at some point you're like, why don't they just leave? So in our heads, we're like, all right, no more one location movies. We're also all cooped up because of the pandemic. So, and both Matt and I, we love road trips. Like we had done tons of road trips together because of Matt's aforementioned fear of flying.
So I'll drive a lot if I can. Like I have a brother in Tennessee, and I'll just drive to Tennessee. But Freddie would always come with me because it's just we both like just going on the road, seeing new places, the conversations you have, like free flowing, like
And so in our head, we're like, oh, that's another way to do a cheap movie. You can do a road trip movie where you don't have to have it be tied necessarily to specific locations. It can be, this whole set of sequences just in the car. And then they go somewhere and they're having a conversation. It's just a vista, and we'll find a good vista that we can do that on. So that was the plan.
Yeah, and I think the transition to actually writing this one, it's always different. I feel like at the end of the day, writers, or at least me and the writers I know, are all inherently lazy because one, writing's hard, and two, it's like you especially if you're a film writer, you're writing stuff that 90% of the time you know is not going to get made, so it can be hard to be inspired. So usually what happens is you have a million ideas that you like, that you write down notes here and there, and you start writing when somebody's going to pay you to start writing, or you know you're going to make something. So what was nice about this movie is like we just knew after years of trying to pitch other films, working on other people's projects, working on bigger projects that like didn't get anywhere, we're like, you know what, let's like write an idea that we know 100%, like YouTube days, like we're going to make a film at the end of this week, is like we're going to make this movie, so we're 100% going to make it. Once like we got the main like idea and we're like, we could afford this, we can make this movie, then we just like got to it. We're like, okay, we're gonna write this thing, like we're gonna shoot it, so let's just write it.
Okay.
It doesn't look too bad. So we'll just wrap this up nice and tight and keep it from getting worse.
Everybody's got to ask about the calves.
Right. Yeah, right. Fine.
Nice calves. What?
When we watched that at South by, that you brought the house down.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody was losing their mind with that little drum in the background, which feels so tribal. You guys really did a good job with sound design there. You just snuck everything out before we even knew it, and we found ourselves lost in her head. And then when the noise floor comes back up at that moment, it's like such a powerful moment. What the hell?
That's so I'll just say like the meet cute was a sequence that we wrote many times. It's probably the hardest scene of the movie, and it's that when you're talking about how we would edit in between screenings, I think this was the sequence that we did a lot of the most tweaking. I just knew very early like they were going to do a meet cute, they're going to like each other, but like we just wanted to give it a little bit more, I don't know, like spice. And why it was calves, look, I don't got a lot going on for me. But my wife likes my calves, and so we just thought it'd be funny. It just felt more personal, like something that's specific, because everybody's weird, especially like sexually. Everybody's got their own thing. It just makes it feel more her. That's like she just likes calves a lot, and she's really into it. When we started saying the script around to friends, like bar none, almost every guy we sent it to was like, you know, had notes like the script, et cetera, et cetera. The calf scene, that's kind of weird. What was that? Every woman we gave it to was like, whatever you do, whatever changes, keep the calves thing. I like all that spice being condensed into like a single silly thing.
What the fuck? Oh my god, where did they go? Where did they go? What the fuck? Oh my god, where are they? Where's the trailer? Where did they go?
No!
Oh, please.
You son of a bitch! No! What's this? What the actual shit?
Oh my god, the spike jumped.
Right.
The spike jumped.
That sequence is like 50% of our production problems.
A very difficult sequence for two reasons. One, we needed to close off a road for a while because there was going to be some practical element into it. All the dirt and then the first layer and everything sort of about to 8 feet height is, in fact, just real stuff. And then the rest of the stuff filled out is using the real stuff as reference, built out foliage around it. So when we look at this, so like these bushes here that overlap him are real, right? Mm-hmm. But this distant tree is fake. All this foliage here is fake.
And the bottom part of this cut tree is we had one big cut piece of tree, so it'd be the exact line. For this sequence, we storyboarded. We actually did like a previs in a park with just using like a sidewalk as the line. We had to know exactly what shots we were going to have, and we had to make it as easy as possible for our little production designer team to like afford to make anything. So we had to know exactly what we were going to see, and because of all that prep, like what Freddie was pointing out, we knew that we could get away with everything if we just had about an 8-foot by 8-foot piece of dirt and some trees and one nice clean line, and everything else could be CG'd from these kind of like wider, easier shots. So this was probably this sequence and when the car goes in the river were the two sequences that leading up to filming we were constantly figuring out exactly how we could do with our tiny budget.
When you thought of this, did you have the rule in your head that when the spike jumps, things move around Earth?
Yeah, that was actually early. Pretty quickly, we knew that the spike was just going to swap land. Like, we thought of that first, and then we're like, oh, how are we going to do that on a budget?
How does that look like? Well, maybe it's not a lot of land. Maybe it's a small cube of land.
Yeah.
Like a small cube of space gets rearranged and shuffled around.
The idea was almost like an old computer when you like drag a mouse really quick and kind of like drop stuff. We thought it was kind of like that. Like if the spike moves really quick, even though we see this instantaneously, if you're slowed it down to, almost frozen time, you'd see that it is actually moving really quickly, and it's kind of like churning up dirt as it goes, and it has occasional glitches where like it drops something while grabbing something. It's kind of like the feeling of it.
Yep.
This was, again, the big production design thing was, do we need to cut this car to get this hole in it?
Right.
So then, we were thinking about doing VFX, and then very quickly it was like, we're going to see so many shots of this car. We're going to do effects on all of those. No, not worth it. So we had to find a fabricator who, that truck is cut at as close as you can to the frame. And this is where I think having the VFX background and having some flexibility, having done our own stuff really helped, which was, in the script, it was like, oh yeah, a huge chunk of the back is gone. It's just a hole. And then talking to the car fabricator, he's like, oh, we can get this much. This is the most we can get you. And we're like, can the person fit through? We're like, fine, we can work with that.
We knew a lot of the movie was going to be in the car, so we had a couple things like the hole in the car felt like really important to have because it was like it just reminds you of what happened before. It's a little bit more interesting than just being in a car. It also means when we're staging stuff in the back, you can have them look outside. Then you can block scenes, like not just everybody in one spot, but you can like have them talk through windows. So we're always looking for ways that if we're going to do something low budget and like in a single area, how can you get more interesting angles and how can you like bring the storytelling, in this case, the spike, like even if you're in the car, how do you remind the audience of all the sci-fi in the spike? And so like having a piece of the car missing felt like a good way to constantly have that world in your movie.
Yeah.
Do you guys have something in your head for what the spike is or where it came from?
It is definitely deliberately vague as to what exactly it is.
Yeah, I feel like Lovecraft or ignoring not even like saying just Lovecraft, I feel like the idea of being where truly sands in, a grain of sand in an everless universe or whatever, like it can't really have an answer because that would almost defeat the purpose of it. So for us, it's like important. They never figured it out. They shot it. They did all these things. It seems mineral. Maybe it's organic, but it doesn't seem to have sentience, but sometimes there seems to be a reasoning behind it. But I think we probably both have our own.
We both have our own. I like to think that specifically it's just like a giant finger tentacle from some Cthulhu being that's working on a different time scale that's just happening to intersect with our reality for a bit. But in terms of that perspective, it's like, 2 seconds of its life. But for us, we're just like, it's here for the next 10,000 years,
So like the ending of Men in Black where like the thing picks up the marble. Right. It's like that's what that is. It's like one of his fingers. Right. And like for him, he just did this. Before us, that's probably like 600,000 years of history or whatever.
Yeah, but it is very much a metaphor. I think, and then in the script, we even mentioned it. We're like, oh, it's like the sword of Damocles. It is this object hanging over all of us, and it's I think it's a stand-in for oblivion itself, right? It's the stand-in for death. It's the stand-in for the unknown. And how do you live under this oppressive weight of it, which I think was on everyone's head. I think when we were in the middle of the pandemic.
New Zion.
This is our exit, 89 North.
Wait, isn't it safer to cut across through Nevada?
Yeah, but we're sticking to main roads and we're not stopping anywhere, so this will be faster.
Well, this goes through New Zion, right?
Yeah.
And across the Glass Lake.
Yes. Why are you asking? What's the problem?
Nothing. No, I just Dave wanted to see the Glass Lake. It was like his #1 spot on the list. And have you seen it? Is it cool?
bit of world building there, right? Because it's like the idea that like, oh yeah, the United States would probably shift around a little bit, and then we had some fun being like, oh yeah, maybe Washington and Oregon kind of leak into each other a little bit. So we had fun like kind of drawing out a fake map of like, well, it does feel like the northern Utah, like heavily Mormon population side. I bet you they would try and push
also,
for statehood.
Like a lot of South Dakota has a lot of unincorporated land in the north side of South Dakota.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
a lot of white supremacy and stuff. So we thought it'd be fun that there's like some states that have kind of split, and so, again, there's just a little bit of like not big civil war, just like a little bit of like shifting. Like
how much of that stuff didn't make the actual movie?
We had a full map made up.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing that didn't make the movie, it's probably too stupid for the movie, so it's probably good that we didn't keep it in. But it's my favorite thing that we missed, which is we thought it'd be funny if a good chunk of Utah did become like a Mormon, sub-state, theological state. And there was a scene in one of the first drafts that they have to get to a certain place on time. They're running behind. They get to the border of New Zion, and a bunch of guards there, very polite Mormon people, with their guns though, because there's militia around and everything. And they're like, oh, of course you can come through, like happy to drive through. However, it is Sunday, so we're closed. And so the entire state is like closed on Sunday. And she's like, oh my God, if we drive around the state, that's like an extra day and a half of travel. Like there's no way. And they're trying to come up with a way to like get through New Zion. So they like fake like an emergency, and they pretend to be like an ambulance. Like we gotta get to the hospital and all this stuff. But we just thought it was like fun, but it was a little too silly for the movie. But that's a piece of world building we lost.
So you guys keep referencing the budget and low-budget filmmaking.
Yeah.
Can you give us a directional sense of like what is the budget?
So this is not a ultra low, like super duper low budget thing. So we spent $450,000 in terms of the production budget. That's all in for VFX and production as well. So that was like the number that we were aiming at. To contextualize that, like the super crazy low budget stuff, the El Mariachis, the Paranormal Activities, sub $10,000. El Mariachi was sort of like famously known for, it was a $6,000 movie, right? And even the guy who did Paranormal Activity was like, he did for $6,000, that's my number too. So that's one sort of world, which this definitely isn't in. And then there's another sort of, I would say, you have your sort of like sub 1 million is kind of like another indie category.
You have to kind of get into the $2 to $5 million range to like kind of get to be like a traditional indie film. If you're under the $1 million to $2 million, there's not really investment in that area because you're too small to kind of go anywhere. So you're kind of just in this. So there is this small world of kind of like sub $1 million features, but that's definitely like dying off quite a bit.
It's kind of insane though that you guys are able to make a sci-fi post-apocalyptic movie for sub $1 million.
The only reason we could even do a movie like this at about $450,000 is because this is what they don't teach you in film school. We just had to come up with like a top 50 Spotify podcast about Dungeons and Dragons that actually like makes money, and then we could save that for 3 years to make a movie. So that's the weird world of indie filmmaking now. Filmmaking is such an expensive and difficult thing. Like, keep the crew as small as we can. We make it so that we can be shot as quickly as possible, and like minimize the amount of VFX that we have to let other people do, and like pay all those people right. And like that's kind of your budget. A lot of it is about figuring out how much, like, what we can do ourselves for as free as possible, and then like what bang for your buck. Like, how do you best use your crew and everybody else for as much as you can.
And so what's the next thing that you guys are working on? Are you working on another
so
movie
now
right
we got that bug. Now we're working on our next one, which we're calling Nail House. It's a script that we've had for years at this point, but it's an action kung fu, very much in the style of like Kung Fu Hustle.
Shaolin Soccer.
Or Shaolin Soccer. It's like over the top, very slapstick. I'm going to be in it as one of the characters.
It's been our dream project for years and years. It's one that like everybody always loves the script, and then it gets down to a certain point where it's the response is always like, it's a little too weird, it's a little too goofy. And it's like, but everybody loves Shaolin Soccer.
Yeah, if you read Kung Fu Hustle, you'd say it's also too goofy too. But I've never met a single person who didn't like that movie.
It's a little bit more complicated because it's going to be a little bit more expensive, so we can't completely self-finance it. So we're trying to find some other ways to do it. Part of which is, we're thinking about launching a Patreon for the behind the scenes of it, so you can see the actual making of a film as it's being made, not like a curated behind the scenes after the fact of a movie that's already been made. It's like, no, you're just going to see. We'll just give you a complete inside look to the film. Like, and if it doesn't get made, you're going to watch a year and a half of a movie not get made also.
For us, this one is like, well, look, we're not going to be able to match the budgets and the way that, sort of big Hollywood action movies do it. But our strength was being able to spend time really dialing in your choreography and dialing in your angles and really taking advantage of the space you're in. So in order to do that, this main central set that we have for this story, which is about two brothers defending their family dumpling shop from a tech company who wants to buy out all the land. So it's all like kind of taking place in this like dumpling shop, right? A lot of it is. So it's like, well, we need to build out a dumpling shop, a Chinese restaurant. Not huge, but we do need to find a warehouse or something that we can actually build the structure in.
Because almost all films that are under $1 million, they almost all have the same schedule. It's always 18 days, essentially 3 weeks, 6-day shoots, and then you get the crew out there. And like we did like 21 days on We're All Gonna Die. But if we can have a set for 6 months,
you can play
then
with
we can still, we might only shoot 20 days or 25 days, but we can have 40 days to choreograph and plan and shot list inside the set, because that's where you're going to get the best action stuff. So that's the big production question for our next movie. And then if we can figure that out, then it'll start moving fast.
That's so smart. It reminds me of there's a great OK Go music video that's shot in 0G. They reserved 2/3 of the budget, not to shoot, but to be in 0G together as a band.
Oh, cool.
To play,
to figure it
to
out.
see what could we do in 0G.
That's smart.
That was 2/3 of their budget.
Yeah.
And then the last third was, okay, now that we have played and we know the limitations of that space, now let's make the film.
Now do it.
Yeah.
That's cool.
There's probably better filmmakers than us who can just visualize it in their heads. But like, I remember this was like, I think even James Cameron said this, which was, and it's really hit me in my later years. Did you get into movies to stay at home in front of your computer, pressing buttons? That's why you wanted to get into movies? I was like, damn it.
No,
that's not what I wanted. I wanted to get to pick up a camera and run
Plus playing
around.
around.
It's always different in your head
100%.
than
100%.
when you're on location.
Yeah.
It's always different.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of it. It's that improv.
It's that improv and it's that chaos that comes from, again, live action filming. I think some of my favorite shots and some of the bits in this are not written in the script. There's little things where it's like, oh, the way the light hits our main actor as he backs up from a thing. I'm like, ooh, I never would have written that. And that looks so much better than, and if you're not open to finding those things, then it's like, well, you're missing out on like really cool stuff.
Guys, thank you so much for doing this.
Of
Thank you.
This was amazing to hear how you think about movie making, and
Thanks for having
us.
us.
Guys,
Thanks for having us.
Awesome.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.